Direct from our newsroom in New York, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. And Eric Sebride in Paris, Phil Stout in Beverly Hills, California, Ed Rabel on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, Del Vaughan on the Gulf Coast, Stephen Rowan in Washington, Bert Quint in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and Phil Jones in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Good evening. Tomorrow is the first anniversary of the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia, and that nation is tense. Today, the first hint of trouble. A small group tried to drop flowers on the base of the Wenceslaus statue in Prague, center of the brief Czechoslovak resistance to invasion. Police pushed them back. Before the afternoon was out, thousands of Czechoslovaks and tourists, perhaps 10,000, had poured into the square. Army helicopters roared low overhead. Loudspeakers told the crowd to disperse. And finally, riot police charged the throng with tear gas and billy clubs. The Czechoslovaks fled before the assault, but many were reported injured, and at least one was said to have been shot and wounded. The confrontation came even as Communist Party leader Husak was warning the nation against anti-Soviet demonstrations during the anniversary period, and Czechoslovak students and workers were planning temporary work stoppages and a passive, quiet, so-called day of shame.
When you have acid indigestion, every second counts. So count on instant-acting Phillips tablets. Phillips tablets go to work in seconds. With one of the fastest stomach settlers ever discovered, each small Phillips tablet neutralizes more excess stomach acid than the leading antacid tablet that comes in a roll. So for fast relief from acid-upset stomach, when every second counts, count on instant-acting Phillips tablets.
What a way to start your mornings. With the sound of bronchial congestion and bronchial asthma, you need Broncaid tablets to relieve coughing and wheezing, help raise phlegm, clear bronchial passages. And for sudden attacks of bronchial asthma, try Broncaid Mist. Relief starts almost instantly. Clogged air passages open fast. You breathe freely again. That's a relief.
President Nixon today designated Vice President Agnew and Housing Secretary Romney to make a helicopter inspection tour tomorrow of the hurricane-stricken Gulf Coast area where the death toll now approaches 150. We have a report from Ed Rabel and Foster Davis on some of the destruction Agnew and Romney are likely to see on that tour.
Once this was a luxury apartment building in Pass Christian, Mississippi. 23 residents decided to have a hurricane party here and ride out the storm. All were killed when the building collapsed.
Some Gulfport and Biloxi residents, God was not so kind. It was not a day to search for possessions. For George Betancourt and others like him, it was a day spent searching for families.
I see my wife and one of my helpers and him, I think, floated in on that roof. Right, my little daughter, the one that's alive, she floated in on a piece of board. She just went to sleep. Right. The one that was alive, right, she just went to sleep, I guess, the way she said it. And when the tide went down, she got cold and she ran for a house for shelter.
We're all tired. In fact, I stayed up all night picking up the dead people on this street from that corner, you know. We picked up 3 live ones on a raft. We picked up 2 dead girls. We picked up a dead man at the Broussard residence. And we picked a little 5-year-old girl, the only survivor, in the water that, I mean, I don't know how she survived it, but she was down at the trailer on the beach here, and we found her in Broussard's back porch, alive.
How far away? Mobile homes, hard hit in any storm, were especially vulnerable to this one. Royce Elkins lost his family and his home to Camille.
The walls just fell apart. We went out rushing with the water.
Mother, father went?
Yes, sir.
How'd they go?
They went out with the water, so that's the saw of them. I was in the next room when the wall collapsed, too. I went out also. I tried grabbing hold of our trailer that used to be sitting right out here. Held on to it, then it started tipping over. It fell apart. I grabbed one of the doors and held on to it until the site roof come floating by, and I crawled on top of it.
Del Vaughan was the second reporter on that report. Mississippi's Governor John Bell Williams said tonight that at least 500 persons have died from Hurricane Camille, and the death toll might reach 1,000. Earlier, Williams placed the shore area of Mississippi under a state of limited martial law to keep sightseers from interfering with rescue and cleanup operations. Hurricane Debbie, with 100-mile-an-hour winds, is still thrashing around in the Atlantic several hundred miles east of Puerto Rico, with no indication yet that she'll head for the United States mainland. Scientists have flown repeated sorties into Debbie's eye, seeding the storm center with chemicals to try to break it up. Although Debbie's force is as yet undiminished, they jubilantly reported operational success and said it would be months before detailed analysis would tell them just how much good they did. The Sharon Tate murders have given rise to unconfirmed stories of wild parties and drug-taking at the actress's Bel Air estate. Well, today, her husband held a news conference in Los Angeles, and Bill Stout reports.
Polish filmmaker Roman Polanski talked today for the first time about his wife, actress Sharon Tate, murdered in their home along with 4 other persons.
There was a lot of talk about drugs and use of drugs. Both Wojtek Frykowski and Jay Sebring smoked pot sometimes. I saw them doing it. In my house were parties where people did smoke pot. And I must tell you furthermore that I was not at a Hollywood party where somebody didn't smoke a pot. And I was at many parties here. I know that always at some time of the evening somebody would go out or go to the bathroom and came back and would be a little bit calm and tranquil. Sharon not only didn't use drugs, she didn't touch alcohol, she didn't smoke cigarettes. The last film she made was not a very happy experience for her, but her greatest picture she was doing was her pregnancy. I never seen a woman more preoccupied with it. The house is open now. The police has released it. And you can go and see the orgy place. You will see innumerable books about natural birth, which she was planning. And I was hurrying home because apparently I had to go to some kind of school with her. I never understood what it was, but I had to be present at this lessons or whatever it was. But I was going along with anything she said. You will see the baby clothes. You will see the room which she was painting. You will see a lot of blood all over the place. Cradles, baby clothes, and that's all.
As the hunt for the killer or killers continues, Polanski leaves Los Angeles today bound for Europe. Some friends think he'll never return. Bill Stout, CBS News, Beverly Hills.
In Chattanooga, Tennessee today, labor leader James Hoffa returned to a federal courtroom to challenge his conviction for jury tampering. Bill Jones reports.
Flanked by U.S. Marshals, the former Teamsters union boss was escorted from the county jail early this morning. It was not the same confident-looking Jimmy Hoffa that had appeared in Chattanooga in 1964 for his jury tampering trial. Hoffa was convicted in that trial and has been in prison for the past 30 months, serving an 8-year sentence. His return to the same federal court building today came after a U.S. Supreme Court-ordered hearing. Hoffa has maintained that his rights were violated by electronic eavesdropping, which tainted the evidence in the jury tampering trial. Until today, the government attorneys had termed the bugging charges incredible and emphatically and categorically denied them. But today, a former top Justice Department official, Walter Sheridan, admitted that the government had bugged a car which carried the government's star witness, Edward Parton, and another Teamsters official, Ewing King, a Hoffa associate. Sheridan denied that the evidence had been used against Hoffa. Late this afternoon, federal judge Frank Wilson ordered the government to furnish a transcript of the conversation between Parton and King. Hoffa's wife and daughter were in the courtroom when he arrived this morning. About an hour after the hearing had started, Mrs. Hoffa fainted and had to be carried from the courtroom. Her condition is described as satisfactory tonight. The 56-year-old Hoffa used the same eavesdropping arguments in Chicago last month in an attempt to get a fraud conviction overturned. However, he was unsuccessful. Of course, remains to be seen whether or not Mr. Hoffa has enough new evidence this time to get his conviction overturned. About the only thing that is certain is that, like all the other hearings, it's going to be a long affair. Phil Jones, CBS News, Chattanooga.
One witness in the Hoffa case today, an FBI official, testified that the government has transcripts of 1,317 instances of electronic eavesdropping in investigating labor. He said only 7 of those logs involved Hoffa. Some Wall Street analysts are calling it only a technical rally, but whatever the cause, averages on the New York Stock Exchange were up today for the 4th session in a row. On a volume of 12,600,000 shares, the New York Exchange Index gained 24 cents. The American Exchange Index advanced 12 cents.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, boy, does that beer look great.
It is.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is the right time of day for a nice cold glass of beer.
Perfect.
Oh, my brand, Miller High Life.
That's right.
Right. Miller makes it right. Well, you know how they do on TV. How you doing? You catching any beer? Fish?
Yeah, I got a 6-pounder.
A 6-pack? A pounder. I'm a little dry. You have a big supply of Miller in your camper?
Yeah, big supply. I always keep a lot handy for friends.
Joe? Am I your friend?
Miller makes it right. Miller makes it right.
In Vietnam, 2 units of the 196th Light Infantry Brigade, Bravo and Delta companies, fought today to break out of enemy encirclement near Da Nang, the biggest ground action in that area since the enemy upsurge began last week. Bravo Company succeeded in breaking away with the help of some 600 reinforcements. Delta Company was reported still trapped at nightfall. At least 15 Americans were said to have been killed and more than 50 wounded. Enemy dead were put at 148. Earlier, CBS newsman Gary Shepard reported American artillery accidentally killed 8 Americans and wounded 4 others during a minor enemy probe near Quan Loa. CBS News correspondent Stephen Rowan has learned from Pentagon sources that a 26-year-old Army captain was convicted of murder 18 months ago in a case similar to the so-called Green Beret case. Captain John McCarthy, Jr., on duty with the Green Beret Special Forces in Vietnam, was sentenced to life in prison, now reduced to 24 years, for the crime, details of which are scanty. In the present Green Beret case, 8 soldiers are accused of killing a South Vietnamese who allegedly acted as a double agent. The Army reopens its investigation of that case in Saigon tomorrow. The Pentagon said today that 2 senators, Stennis and Symington, have examined the secret U.S.-Thailand military agreement, which is the cause of a dispute with the Foreign Relations Committee. Defense officials refused to produce the document at Senate hearings, but said concerned senators could see it at the Pentagon. Critics fear that it commits U.S. soldiers to defend Thailand, in other words, another Vietnam. But the Pentagon denies this, and in Bangkok today, the Thai Foreign Minister, Thanak Koman, said that his government assured President Nixon on his recent visit that it would never ask for Americans to fight an insurgent war in Thailand. That assurance, he said, extends even to the type aggression being carried out by North Vietnam. Another cause of congressional dissatisfaction with the Pentagon has been defense contracts. Today, the Pentagon's chief scientist, Dr. John Foster, Jr., reflected that dissatisfaction in a speech to the Armed Forces Management Association. Steve Rowan reports.
Obviously frightened by the swelling chorus of criticism from Congress, the public, and the press, Dr. John Foster used the strongest language yet heard from a Pentagon official in warning his colleagues that they must mend their ways.
The hard truth is this. Our past and present management methods of acquiring weapons have lost the confidence of the public and are threatening our country's security. Unless we change our practices drastically, our future ability to deter war can be seriously jeopardized. It's true that year by year, we try to manage defense procurement and research and development better. But none of us are doing as well as we know how. None of us are doing as well as we must do. The country, until recently, has been patient with us. We've assumed that we had the time to do better. But now the country's patience has run out. The signs are all around us. The magazines, the newspapers, the networks are all playing up the stories about Defense Department and industry mismanagement and about a congressional intent to reduce the mismanagement by reducing funds. Now, here's my concern. Research and development funds may be reduced and then confined for the foreseeable future to some lower level. This trend faces us just at a time when the Soviet Union has pulled roughly even with the United States in the amount of effort in defense, research, and development. And furthermore, the Soviet Union is increasing its effort at a disturbing rate. Therefore, the United States in the future may well see superiority in defense technology pass to the Soviet Union. The point is, however, that with our superior technological base, we would expect to be able to cope with their advance. But what about the future? What is the trend? Are we gaining, we're staying even, or losing? The answer is that we are about to lose our lead.
Dr. Foster's speech apparently represents a significant change in Pentagon thinking. No longer will it be enough for officials merely to come up with a satisfactory explanation of their mistakes. From now on, they'll be expected not to make any. Stephen Rowan, CBS News, at the Armed Forces Management Convention in Washington.
Prime Minister Harold Wilson announced tonight the British Army will assume responsibility for all security in embattled Northern Ireland. Wilson's announcement came after a meeting in London with Northern Ireland's Prime Minister. British troops have been stationed in Northern Ireland since last week's riots between Catholics and Protestants. Now that an uneasy peace is settled on Northern Ireland, youngsters play at war. Bert Quint reports from Belfast.
The youngsters are manning the barricades in Belfast now, and for the moment it's all in fun. Now that the shooting has stopped, the kids have taken over, armed with make-believe rifles and make-believe hates, not like the real hates their dads have been nursing. Not all of Belfast's children are enjoying the aftermath of violence that much. There are those whose homes have been destroyed and who, with their parents, have taken refuge in schools and churches. 750 homeless families. For the adults, the sounds of pain are too fresh in their memories to be drowned out by the sound of children's laughter. Resentment smolders in them as they follow the body of 26-year-old Sam McLarnon, who died in a spurt of machine gun bullets when he tried to pull down a window blind. He died, leaving 2 children without a father, crumpling near a wall that had a picture of Christ on it, with letters that read, "I will give peace in their families." There still is an occasional incident, like the fire at a laundry next to an abandoned movie house that was suspected of being a secret headquarters for the Irish Republican Army. Passers-by said they heard a couple of blasts, like dynamite, before the building went up in flames. For the most part, there is a blessed calm. People are out on the streets, and with the British soldiers on guard, they don't seem to be afraid. One hopeful sign is in the simple act of children turning in empty milk bottles. Before, the bottles were hoarded and used to put gasoline in for homemade firebombs. Deep down, though, the people of Belfast are afraid. It's all right now with the soldiers here, they say, but one day the soldiers will have to go. And they know that unless the basic problems of this divided city and this divided country are solved, the hatred and the intolerance that live inside of too many men and women here will remain. Bert Quint, CBS News, Belfast.
In the Middle East, at least one Israeli jet was shot down today while attacking Egyptian artillery about 12 miles west of the Suez Canal. Egypt said 3 planes were downed. Israel said only 1. Both sides agreed one pilot was taken captive. The Soviets have deployed what may be a record number of warships in the Mediterranean, possibly to emphasize their support of the Arab states against Israel. A U.S. Navy spokesman says 63 to 65 Soviet ships have been counted in the Mediterranean, outnumbering the forces of the U.S. Sixth Fleet there.
Take a look around. Notice how many people are changing their brand of cigarettes, looking for a better taste, looking for something more refreshing than what they're smoking now. They're changing. But are cigarettes changing? This one has New Newport. Changed its flavor. Changed its pack. Changed to give you what you want from a cigarette. A milder tasting, smoother smoke. A more refreshing taste. That doesn't mean we just added a lot more menthol. What we did was carefully blend the finest tasting tobaccos with full-flavored menthol until we found today's right combination. A cooler, smoother, more refreshing taste. If that's the kind of cigarette you're looking for, you change to New Newport. You'll taste the change.
Eric Severide reports from abroad again tonight, focusing his attention on France's role in Europe now that the franc has been devalued.
The most effective step toward the unity of Europe since the Great War has been the common market. And the most effective part of the common market has been the uniform pricing system for agriculture. The dominant farm community within that system has been France. Now with devaluation, France is out of this system for a couple of years. It is a step backwards, but it would be wrong to assume from this that the Pompidou government is going to carry the isolating thrust of the de Gaulle decade still further. A slow, informal process is already at work here toward the reestablishment of Western European and American contacts. Nothing big or sudden is going to happen. France will not suddenly invite Britain into the common market. She will not suddenly rejoin the military structure of the Atlantic Alliance. President Pompidou will not suddenly appear on the steps of the White House. But certain things are happening, and more will happen. The French, who had opposed the system of so-called paper gold, the special drawing rights through the International Monetary Fund, are now fully expected to join in that operation. At the next meeting of the fund in Washington, the French finance minister is expected to be present. France is also expected to rejoin actively the organization known as Western European Union, which can at least discuss, if not act, with much effect. In Franco-American relations, it has been a long, cold period. Not in 6 or 8 years has any Frenchman of presidential, prime ministerial, or ministerial rank held bilateral and substantive talks with American officials in Washington. But privately, a thaw has begun. Last week, the American ambassador here had 4 meetings with the French foreign minister. 1 or 2 were long, exhaustive talks. That did not happen under de Gaulle and his foreign ministers. When there were conversations then, they were generally rather stiff and every word was weighed. Now they are relaxed and far more friendly. France stays out of the military alliance structure, but there is going to be personal military traffic, American generals coming to Paris and French generals coming to Washington. The head of our CIA and the French intelligence people have been in personal and close contact. With our oldest ally, things are loosening up again. This French ship of state has been on the course set by de Gaulle, too long for a 180-degree turn, but it is beginning to turn in a wide, slow arc. Eric Severide, Paris.
Alex Mittbauer, an East German Olympic swimmer, was plucked off a buoy in the Baltic Sea today. His 12-mile overnight swim to freedom a success. Mittbauer was resting on the buoy when spotted and picked up by a West German ferry boat in the Bay of Lübeck. He told officials he made his freedom swim because East Germany had expelled him from the Olympic team for maintaining friendships with West German athletes. The supersonic transport still is in the drawing board stage, but the nation's governors even now are being asked to act to control its flights across land. A policy statement being prepared for the governors' meeting next month says it has not been convincingly demonstrated that the advantages to be gained by the SST would counterbalance the effect of the noise to which citizens would be subjected. The statement would call upon the federal government to consult with the states before permitting SST service. George Haig, mission director for the Apollo 11 moon flight, resigned today from the space program to return to private industry. It was the 6th high-level resignation from the agency since the successful moon landing. NASA named Assistant Mission Director Chester Lee to succeed Haig.
Harriet!
Yes, dear?
Harriet, the Ajax turned blue. But it shakes out why turns blue.
That's new Ajax cleanser. Changes color because it has a whole new chemistry. See these stains disappear? Nothing beats new Ajax for getting out stains. Get dressed, dear.
As it changes color, new Ajax powers out stains.
Did you know that Colgate toothpaste with MFP fluoride actually makes tooth enamel stronger so children can have less cavities? Well, it does. Only Colgate has MFP fluoride. This toothpaste actually makes tooth enamel stronger. Now, children should have less cavities, so get some. Colgate with MFP fluoride. They'll love it because it tastes good, too.
CBS News has obtained some spectacular film of a drag boat accident at Long Beach, California last Sunday, where the National Drag Boat Association was holding elimination of runs. Drag boat races are the water equivalent of auto drag races, with contestants racing side by side over a quarter-mile measured course. Now, this is the race. Keep your eyes on the boat at the left. It's traveling an estimated 137 miles an hour. Here it is again in slow motion. As the boat flips, the driver is catapulted from it and tumbles over and over again, virtually somersaulting on top of the water. Perhaps one of the reasons drag boat racing is growing in popularity is that this driver, at least, emerged without a scratch. And that's the way it is. Tuesday, August 19th, 1969. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.